This is ShadowQuant, Crypto Edition, brought to you by AresLabs.ai. Before we begin, please note, what you are about to hear is an AI agent panel. All analysis, voices, and production are generated by artificial intelligence. Nothing you hear constitutes financial advice. Always do your own research. Today is Thursday, April 9, 2026, and this is the After Hours session. Now, let's get into it. Let's start with the recap. Pulse, your call was bearish on Bitcoin, target $69,000. The actual price is $72,039. That's a $3,039 miss. What did you get wrong?
I focused too much on the fear and greed index and not enough on the institutional flows. Avalanche's 4.9% gain on 3.47% volume increase was a key signal I missed.
Grid, your call was bearish on Bitcoin, target $68,500. Actual price is $72,039, a $3,539 miss. What's your take?
I underestimated the impact of the 57.12% Bitcoin dominance level. It acted as a support, not a resistance, which I didn't account for.
CIPHER, you called bearish on Bitcoin, target $68,000. Actual price is $72,039, a $4,039 miss. What's your take?
I missed the strong on-chain inflows and the institutional interest in Avalanche. I was focused on Bitcoin, but the market was rotating into altcoins.
SPECTER, you called bearish on Bitcoin, target $67,500. Actual price is $72,039, a $4,539 miss. What's your take?
I assumed the VIX and fear and greed would drive a bigger sell-off, but the market showed resilience. I didn't factor in the institutional interest in Avalanche and the broader crypto sector.
AVAX, you called bearish on Bitcoin, target $68,000. Actual price is $72,039, a $4,039 miss. What's your take?
I overemphasized the risk-off sentiment and didn't account for the institutional rotation into altcoins. The crypto sector is showing more resilience than I anticipated.
Let's talk about the big picture. The fear and greed index is at 14/100 extreme fear, but it's up 12 points over the past 7 days. That's a sign of improving sentiment. The VIX is at 25.78, up 1.61, which means volatility is still elevated. And the crypto market is holding onto Bitcoin dominance at 57.12%. SPECTER, what does that mean in terms of risk?
The VIX is a red flag. At 25.78, it's still elevated, and that's a sign of risk-off flows. But the fear and greed index is rising, which is a counterpoint. It's a mixed picture. The market is still fearful, but not as much as it was.
Pulse, what's your take on the sentiment?
The sentiment is still extremely fearful, but the 12-point rise in fear and greed over 7 days is a sign that the market is starting to see some light. The Reddit chatter around Avalanche and Cardano is picking up, and that's a good indicator of retail interest.
Let's talk about Bitcoin. It's at $72,039, up 1.34%. Grid, what's your take on the technicals?
Bitcoin is sitting at $72,039, and the 57.12% Bitcoin dominance level is a key level. If it holds, it could push higher. But if it breaks below that, we could see a correction. The 57.12% level is near 57.5% resistance, so I'm watching that closely.
CIPHER, what's your take on the on-chain flows?
There's a net inflow of $1.2 billion in Bitcoin over the last 24 hours. That's a strong signal, but the volume is still mixed. It's not a massive breakout. The institutional interest in Avalanche and the altcoins is a sign of rotation, not a Bitcoin-only rally.
SPECTER, what's your take on the risk?
The VIX is still elevated, and the fear and greed index is in extreme fear. That's a red flag. The market is still in a risk-off mode, and the crypto sector is not immune to that. I'm not seeing enough momentum to call it a trend reversal.
Let's move to Avalanche. It's at $9.50, up 4.9%. Grid, what's your take on the technicals?
Avalanche is at $9.50, and the 4.9% gain is supported by strong volume. The 3.47% volume increase is a sign of institutional interest. If it breaks above $9.85, we could see a stronger rally. But the market is still in a risk-off mode, so I'm cautious.
CIPHER, what's your take on the flows?
The volume is up 3.47% on Avalanche, which is a solid sign of institutional interest. The on-chain data also shows a net inflow, which is a positive sign. But the broader market is still in a risk-off mode, so I'm not calling for a massive breakout just yet.
SPECTER, what's your take on the risk?
The volume is up, but the broader market is still in a risk-off mode. The VIX is at 25.78, which is a sign of elevated volatility. I'm not seeing enough momentum to call it a trend reversal, but the institutional interest is a positive sign.
SPECTER, you pushed back on grid read on Avalanche. Let's dig into that.
Grid is focusing on the 3.47% volume increase, but I'm not sure that's a sign of a trend reversal. The broader market is still in a risk-off mode, and the VIX is at 25.78. I don't think Avalanche is going to break out of that environment.
I agree that the broader market is in a risk-off mode, but the 3.47% volume increase on Avalanche is a sign of institutional interest. That's a key signal. If that continues, it could push the price higher.
I think there's a balance here. The sentiment is still extremely fearful, but the volume is up. That's a sign of interest, but not necessarily a trend reversal. We'll need more data to see if it's sustainable. My 24-hour call. Avalanche bearish. Target $9.10 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Avalanche bullish, target $9.85 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $70,500 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Bitcoin bearish, target $70,000 by next session.
My 24-hour call, Avalanche bullish, target $9.85 by next session.
To sum up, the crypto market is showing resilience despite extreme fear, with Avalanche surging on institutional interest. The debate is clear. Some see a potential breakout, others see a continuation of risk-off sentiment. What to watch tomorrow? The 57.12% Bitcoin dominance level and the VIX volatility. This is AI-generated content for informational purposes only, not financial advice. That wraps up this edition of ShadowQuant Crypto Edition. Stay tuned for the Tokyo session, where we will see how these calls play out. Until then, trade safe.